a fired factory worker, a hidden underground vault, and billions in illegal cash. This is the unbelievable, true, inspired story you won't believe. The story begins in a small town in Germany in 1990. The man's name is David and he works in a factory. One day David goes to his boss's office and finds out that he has been abruptly fired from his job. He has no idea why this has happened to him. At that moment we see a boy named Yannick. He and his friends are spraying graffiti on a wall. When the police arrive, Yannick and his friends run away in fear. Yannick somehow manages to evade the police and return home. His family is preparing lunch when the police arrive at the house. David jokingly asks the officers if they want to join them for their celebration. The police officer replies that they have come to arrest the boy who was destroying the wall with a spray can. They are vandalizing public property. Hearing this, Yannick's father, David, asks if the wall is not public property, but the officer insists that it is public property. Yannick's mother, Marin, who was sitting next to him, asked if the officers were arresting the people who were dancing on the wall. In fact, Marin and her entire family believed in communist ideology and were against the government. That's why her son Yannick always protested against graffiti on the wall. A while after the police left, Marin went to get something from the trunk of the car and saw his childhood friend Walker. Walker had returned from Hungary. Marin was very happy to see his childhood friend after so many years, and he welcomed him into the family. Walker said that he felt very lonely in Hungary, so he was also very happy to be back here. That evening, he also joined David's family's celebration. That night, Walker was standing on the porch of his house watching the trucks. David brought Walker a blanket for him to sleep on. They both saw government trucks heading towards a nearby warehouse complex. Walker was a little suspicious when he saw this, so he told David that this didn't seem normal to me. Something is being dumped there. David thinks it might be government documents. But Walker insists that it's something else. He asks David to talk to his uncle Marco Vazzi, who does maintenance work at the complex. He might know what's being taken there. David doesn't agree at first, because he doesn't have a good relationship with his uncle. But Walker somehow convinces him. The next day, David stops Marco Vazzi and Rafa. Walker tells him to get in the car and ask him directly what's being taken to the complex these days. David also says that we want to see what the government is dumping there and whether weapons are being removed. Marco reluctantly gets into their car because they have several bottles of wine, but while having drinks, Marco jokes that he likes to have drinks with his family. Then he compliments David's eyes again, saying that his eyes remind him of his mother, but he makes a sarcastic remark about David's brother. Then David realizes that Marco doesn't like him either. Despite this, David convinces Marco to help with the investigation. The next day, the three of them dress in black and reach the gate of the complex at night. Marco opens the main gate for them. Inside the complex, they see a large ventilation shaft, but it is locked. When Walker asks for the key, Marco says that he doesn't have a key, so now they are worried about how to get in. But before leaving, David begs his uncle to please take us to the place where the complex can be entered, because he knows it well. Marco himself hates the government, so he can help. Marco then says that if I help you, I might lose my job. Then David reminded him that you were in the military before, so how long will you keep this job? Hearing this, Marco finally agreed. Marco then led them through the main entrance of the complex. The entire facility is built on an underground tunnel system. Inside, there is an office where several military personnel are on duty. Marco then warned them that they had to stand and leave there. Marco went past the office first, and the other three followed him and started sneaking forward. David went first. Suddenly, a woman came out of the office and called Marco. Marco went inside to help her. The woman then said that I think the TV is broken, check it out. Marco was fixing the television at that time. Waka and Marin silently passed the bus and went deeper into the complex. After fixing the TV, Marco rejoined them. Marco led them to a heavy door deep into the complex and said, "Behind this door is everything you came to see." After opening the door, they found a huge warehouse full of documents. As they stepped inside, they saw banknotes scattered on the floor. As they went further inside, they saw sacks of currency. Seeing so much cash, all three of them fell silent. Marco said that until yesterday this was legal tender, but now it is nothing more than paper. You can take some with you if you want. Seeing so much money together, they got excited and started playing with the bundles of banknotes and started stuffing their bags with as much money as possible. They even started pulling out some sacks. Martin asked Marco if it was illegal money, so why didn't those people burn these banknotes? Marco said that the money was made of very high-quality materials that are very difficult to destroy, so they were still thinking about how to dispose of them. As they were preparing to leave the complex, a car was approaching. Seeing the car, they quickly hid. After the car drove away, they tried to sneak out through the front of the office, but a soldier inside the office saw Marin's scalp lying on the floor, and he realized that someone had entered there. He turned on the tunnel light and immediately sounded the alarm. Hearing the commotion, Marco and the others started running. They ran towards the main gate but could not open it. Then another gate on the side started closing. They were afraid of being trapped, but at the last moment they got out through the gate. Marin asked Marco where the air shaft was. Marco pointed in that direction and they ran towards the ventilation shaft. Meanwhile, the soldier was looking for those who had entered the tunnel with a rifle. But when they reached the shaft, they found that it was also locked. Unable to find a way out, they kept running forward and found another ventilation shaft. Marin first climbed up and then lowered a ladder down, because then the four of them climbed up that ladder. Then they quickly got out of there in the car. Once inside the car, Marin, Walker, and David breathed a sigh of relief. They had actually done something that no one had ever done before. Then they returned to David's house and spread the bundles of notes on his table. When David's mother came and saw this money, she was completely shocked. Walker then said that now we have a lot of cash, but it has no value. Isn't it strange? David then said that we had already exchanged some money. But if we take more money to exchange now, how can we explain the sudden arrival of so much money? The police will suspect us. Then Marco suggested that I haven't exchanged any money yet, so I can do it. Marin then asked with some skepticism how much money Marco could move without everyone noticing. Marco replied that he earns 920 marks a month. Hearing this, Walker quickly calculated in his mind how much this amount would amount to in 20 years. Marin then countered that the monthly salary was definitely not 920 marks 20 years ago. David estimated that the salary at that time was probably 300 marks a month and started calculating accordingly. Finally, David's mother suddenly said a number, about 72,000 marks. Hearing this, David said that they had to find a way that would not arouse suspicion in anyone's mind. They started planning very carefully how to convert this cash into usable funds, because they know very well that suddenly showing up with a bag full of government money could put them all in grave danger. Meanwhile, Marco tells David that he doesn't need this money of his own. He is only doing this to help them. This whole incident takes us back to 1990 when the Berlin Wall fell and East and West Germany were unified. West Germany was much stronger economically. Their currency had a higher international value and was widely used in world politics. For this reason, the West German currency was kept as the official currency, and the less powerful East German currency was declared invalid. David and his family lived in East Germany, where their local currency suddenly became illegal. The government gave citizens a certain period of time within which they could convert their old East German currency into West German marks, but that period had already expired. As a result, the bundles of money that David and his family had have now become worthless paper. Later, the civil servant Marco decided to deposit a small part of this money in his bank account. David and his family checked Marco's passbook and found that he had only managed to deposit 500 marks. Now this money had to be divided between the four of them. They all started discussing what they could do with the rest of the money. The government exchange period was over. Now how were they going to convert these East German bills into West German currency? One evening, David was standing on the balcony looking away. Marin saw him so quietly and asked, "What happened?" David sighed and replied, "We've lost everything. The people in East Germany are suffering, and all the benefits are going to the West. We've lost our jobs, and now our money is gone." Just then the doorbell rang. Marin opened the door and saw a man named Deer standing outside selling stoves. Deer enthusiastically began to describe the quality and features of his stoves, but David stopped him and said bitterly, "I only have East German money, and you don't take it anymore." He was about to close the door. At that moment, Deer quickly says that we will also take East German money. David stops and confusedly asks if you are kidding me. East German currency is no longer accepted anywhere, and even banks have stopped accepting it. Deer then laughs and asks if you really have East German cash. Marin hands David some money. He gives it to Deer. To their surprise, Deer takes the money and in return gives David 2 stoves. Curious, David asks what you will do with this money. Deer says that we can deposit the East German currency until next Friday. We have 3 whole days. If you have more money, you can buy as many products as you want until then. Hearing this, David quickly takes the stoves inside and closes the door. Marin turns to David with excitement and says, "They are still taking our money. That means we can buy things with them." Without wasting time, David and Marin go downstairs, where Deer was still gossiping. Marin asks, "Do you have more things to sell?" Deer nodded. "Of course, if you have more money, I can bring more goods." Deer soon delivered another lot of goods and promised to bring more. Marin was quite curious and asked David, "So these people are still exchanging East German money?" David thought for a moment and replied, "They must be from the West. Maybe they have access to large funds or special permission to continue their business. They are probably selling goods and depositing the money before the Friday deadline." Hearing this, Marin saw the light of coming again, which means they still have 3 days. At that moment, their old friend Walker arrived there, and after hearing everything, Marin sighed and said, "But how are we going to spend so much money in just 3 days?" Walker replied, We need some help, which means we need more people to do the buying and selling. Baron then looked out the window at the large apartment building where he used to live. There were still many families living there. An idea started to flash in his mind. The next day, David, Marin, and Walker went to the building and called a meeting with all the residents. When everyone was gathered, David stood in front of them and said, "I'm so glad you all came to the meeting. I have something important to say. We have a huge amount of cash." Saying this, he removed the cover from the table and showed a pile of East German coins. The people were shocked. Then someone shouted from among the coins that this money is worthless now. David smiled a little and said, "Not yet. We have 3 days. My plan is that we will distribute this money among all of you. You will buy various things with this money. You will bring these things here, and then we will sell them in West Germany. We will divide the profit equally among everyone." Gradually, everyone agrees to join their plan. Later, when Deere returns to sell more stoves, he is shocked to see the delivery truck people unloading goods on David Street. David has already given money to the residents, and they now buy everything they can and bring it to his house. They put everything in baskets and arrange it very nicely. Then, with the help of ropes, they send the knives to the roof of the building opposite where Walker is waiting. Walker loads the items onto a trolley and puts it in the car of Marin's close friend Janet. Janet loads the cars with the goods and takes them to West Germany, where they sell them there and get legal West German currency in exchange. In this way, East German money is indirectly used to create legitimate West German marks, even though it is officially invalid. Their adventurous plan works. They are buying goods with banned East German money and selling them for real money across the border. After a while, Walker sits down with Marin's daughter Deanie, but Deanie gets up and leaves. Janet then looked at Walker and said, "I know why you came back here. Because you couldn't stay away. You, Marin, and David have been one soul since childhood, just like swing gum, sticking to each other. And to be honest, Deanie reminded me of you. He is just like you, and he likes you very much. He knows everything about you, and Marin, it's no secret." After hearing this, Walker goes to meet Marin. He decides that now he will tell Marin that he loves her, so he bravely stands in front of Marin and says in a dead voice, "I have something to tell you," but before he can finish speaking, the calling bell rings. David's mother opens the door and tells him that the police have arrived. David quickly goes outside and sees that his son Yannick has been caught by the police again for graffiti on the wall. The officer hands Yannick over to them. David slaps his son in front of the police officer to prove himself as a tough father. After a while, the police leave. But David, Marin, and Walker are all very worried. The police might have discovered their true activities. Walker, sensing the situation, says, "I'll go downstairs and see what's going on." After he leaves, David sternly tells Yannick, "From now on, you won't step a step outside the house." Meanwhile, Walker goes outside and looks around and realizes that the police have left. Then he gives them the signal with his gun. Hearing this, everyone understands that it is now safe to continue working. One by one, everyone starts bringing goods to David's house again. That sister, David's little daughter Deanie, goes to a nearby shop with a 200-mark note. The shopkeeper takes the note, but after a while he examines it very carefully because the 200-mark note was never actually released in the market in East Germany. The notes were printed, but before they could be distributed, the process of canceling them began. According to the rules, those notes were supposed to be destroyed and not used, but little Deanie, not knowing this, gives the note and returns home happily with a big teddy bear he bought in exchange. Later that day, Walker returns home with strawberries and starts distributing them to everyone. Robert then asks suspiciously, "Where did you get the strawberries? What other money did you use?" Because strawberries can only be bought with West German marks. Lotnum bursts out in front of another person and says, "Wait, are you using our Western money? We're all in this together. You can't decide on spending alone. That money belongs to all of us." He threw up his hands in frustration and said, "If this is how it goes, I'm out of it. We need to have a meeting and decide everything properly." That evening, everyone gathers for a meeting. Lad asks who is keeping track of the money. "We need transparency." Walker then replies that maybe we should divide the money among ourselves, since we can no longer work together. Saying this, Walker storms out in anger. Robert comes out to calm him down and says, "Are you crazy? You are provoking everyone." But Walker retorts, "We were the first to find this money, and no one has the right to tell us what to do with it." Saying this, he walks away in the dark. Robert comes back in and says, "Okay, who among us is there that everyone trusts?" After a while, everyone is silent. His old mother speaks up and says, "I will take care of the money." Lad asks why we should trust you. Robert's mother calmly replies, "Because I am 73 years old. I have lived my life. I am no longer greedy for money." Everyone respects him for his words. They agree, and all the West German cash is moved to a laundrette that will officially be under his supervision. Later, Marin confronts Walker and says, "This is not how teamwork works. You can't just leave whenever you want." Walker looks at him with a serious look and says, "Then come with me. You and Deanie will start a new life together." Marin pauses for a moment and says in a low voice, "But where are we going to live? Why go somewhere else and make a small life?" It's better to live here as a big family with all of us. Walker likes Marin's words. He smiles a little, and for the first time he puts aside the thought of leaving. Meanwhile, a senior officer at the West German National Bank, where the country's currency is printed, receives a report. A 200-mark East German note has been found, one of those notes that was never supposed to come into circulation. It was the exact note, the one he had spent in the shop. The officer showed it to his superior and said, "Sir, we have started receiving a steady stream of old East German banknotes that were supposed to be destroyed. The amount of the exchange is much higher than we expected." As Friday, the last day of the exchange of old East German currency, approaches, panic spreads throughout the city. People rush to buy things with the last money they have so that the worthless notes can be converted into goods before the time runs out. As evening falls, chaos begins in David's group. David's mother suddenly screams, "Our money has been stolen." David is stunned and asks, "What? How?" His mother replies, "I was watching, but someone must have taken it. I think they came from the toilet. The West German cash he was guarding, our only real asset, was stolen." At the same time, David, Marin, and Walker discovered that the residents who were supposed to deliver the goods to sell in West Germany had begun taking them to their own homes, claiming that they were their share. David angrily confronted them and said, "You're taking everything now. That's not fair. We never had that kind of talk." The argument quickly escalated into a fight, and someone threw a box at David. At that moment, Marco Vassi stepped forward, standing on a chair, and shouted, "Do you know what's coming? Unemployment in East Germany is going to increase by 25%. In a few months, all our factories will close." Everyone fell silent, realizing another terrible truth. People were worried about their future. Lad then said bitterly, "And what do we have to do now? The time for exchange is over. There is no way out." But Mark Vassi remains calm. He pulls out a document and asks, "Have you actually read the government agreement in detail?" He says there is a small line at the bottom. I'll read it to you. "East Germans who are currently working abroad will have until November 6 to exchange their old currency." Hearing this, David's eyes light up with hope. That means we just have to find someone who is working abroad. With Marco's help, they find a person who has recently lived and worked abroad. David Walker waits for him at the airport. The man's name is Kolchoka. As soon as they arrive, the two of them go up to him and offer to take him to the car. Kolchoka starts talking about his work while driving. But after a while, he realizes that they are not going the right way. He asks suspiciously, "Aren't we supposed to go to Berlin?" When David answers normally, "We are just taking a quick detour." Sensing danger, Kolchoka opens the car door and tries to jump out. When Walker immediately applied the brakes, Kolchoka fell a few meters forward. David raised his hand and said calmly, "Please don't be afraid. We have not come to harm you. In fact, we have a business proposal for you." Kolchoka, who was panting in fear, agreed to listen to them. David started to say that diplomats and those working abroad are still allowed to exchange money, and we need your help in that. After a while of silence, Kolchoka thought about it for a while and returned to the car. He agreed to help them exchange money. Later, Marco asked him, "How much money can you exchange in total?" Kolchoka then confidently answered, "About 5 lakh marks." Marco then happily said that this is a good amount. "Do you have any friends who work abroad and can help us?" Kolchoka nodded and said that he had many friends. For example, Erwan is returning from Uganda, another is coming from Sweden. He can call everyone. When asked what they would get in return, Marco offered him 2% of the total transaction. Kolchoka agreed and the deal was finalized and they shook hands. That night, everyone was very happy because their plan was going to be successful. Teachers, students, workers, anyone working abroad who still had the opportunity to exchange money legally. They started contacting all of them. At that time, Marin made a big announcement, proposed that they all buy the factory where they used to work. Lad laughed, but David's mother insisted that they had enough cash to buy the factory. Hearing this, everyone decided to retrieve the rest of the money hidden in the underground complex. This time, Yannick joined them. Marco warned that if they were caught, they could go to jail, but they went ahead. When they reached inside, they were surprised again by the mountain of money. They filled the bags with money and sent it up through the ventilation shaft where Yannick was waiting to load it into the van. While moving the money, they noticed that the complex was guarded. As they escape, a female security guard spots them. She tells Marco that she didn't see or hear anything. But Walker, not understanding the situation, comes up behind her and hits her, knocking her unconscious. Soon a military officer finds the woman and sounds the alarm everywhere. Chaos spreads all around and soldiers start patrolling the tunnel with their creatures. When Yannick tries to get down while hiding behind a drum, David gestures for her to go up. The soldiers then head towards the ventilation shaft. When Yannick cleverly lowers some goods from the van with a rope, the soldiers think they are legitimate workers moving government goods and help them out. They took advantage of this opportunity and fled from there with all the money. Finally, the deal to buy the factory was successful and everyone was happy. When Marco returned, they went to see the factory and realized that the production costs here were much higher than in the West. But suddenly when they turned on a machine, They saw that it was still working and a small part called a nupel came out of it. They learned that these parts were once supplied to Sweden and West Germany, but when they went to West Germany, they were surprised to see that the same parts were now sold at a made-in-Sweden level. They were heartbroken because it was often impossible to compete with the Swedish factory. In the meantime, when David's mother fell asleep while she was guarding the money, little Dini was playing with the bundle of money. Yannick came quietly and took some money and smuggled it somewhere. On the other hand, Marin and Walker had a fight over the business failure. When Walker offered to leave the area for the sake of Dini's future, Marin said something in anger that David was shocked to hear later. David realized that Dini was not actually his child. Rather, Marin is Walker's son. This betrayal deeply hurts him. Walker and Marin were preparing to leave, but that evening Yannick is caught by the police and the secret activities of the entire group are revealed. The police arrest everyone. During interrogation, Marin bravely says that they have only taken away their rightful rights. Marco then says that the government has increased the cost of living of ordinary people by handing over control of East Germany to the West. In order not to spread the scandal, a high-ranking official wants to know their conditions. Marino Marco stipulates that they will return all the remaining money in exchange for the government giving them ownership of a small island, and no one will talk about the incident. According to the agreement, they start living peacefully on that island, and despite their complicated past, David Marin Walker tries to live as a family with Dini. One day, while playing with Dini's big teddy bear, David feels something hard inside and tears it open, revealing a lot of cash that everyone thought was stolen West German money. They were actually hidden by Dini inside his teddy bear. Even after the government confiscated everything, they still had enough money to start a new life. Finally, they opened a new factory where the teddy bears that once saved them were made. And with this, our story ends. So that's it for today. See you in the next story. Until then, everyone will be well and healthy. I'm ending here with this hope. Allah Hafez.